The Branching Out Podcast is pleased to be sponsored by Vivid Pics. Vivid Pics offers a full range of products and services to help you preserve and share your cherished family photos and memories. This is the Branching Out Genealogy Podcast, your go-to guide for family history news, tips, tech, and tea. Here are your hosts, Elizabeth Swanee O'Neill and Tami Osmer-Mize.
Welcome to the Branching Out Genealogy Podcast. I'm Tami Osmer-Mize, and I'm here with co-host Elizabeth Swanee O'Neill, and this is episode 3. Good morning, Elizabeth. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Tami, or whatever time it is for everyone out there in listener land. So I got a new dog. I think I mentioned a couple of episodes ago that we had lost my beloved Fiona. And yesterday we went to our local humane society and we got a new dog who is remarkably similar to the dog we lost, but dissimilar enough that it's not creeping me out.
Oh. Well, what kind of dog is it?
Well, they told us that she's a Cairn Terrier. I'm not 100% convinced. She's got a little too much of a snout to be a Cairn, so she's got something else in her. So you can bet that one of the first things I'm going to be doing is ordering a DNA kit so that I can find out exactly what she is.
We have been wondering about our pound puppy as well, so I think that's what I'm going to do too, and we can do our doggy DNA kits and come back and share our results and talk about our experience here in one of our future episodes. How does that sound?
That sounds great. And I am waiting for the next sale from Ancestry Pet DNA. They typically go on sale for about $79, and I'm guessing they might have one around Valentine's Day or so.
Yeah, we'll keep a watch out. I noticed right now they start at about $99, so
yeah, that's the regular price.
$20 off would be a good deal.
Definitely. We tested my former dog Fiona and the current one that we have right now. His name is Murphy. And we were told that both of these dogs were terriers. And when we had them tested, neither of them were terriers. They had not a tiny bit of terrier in them. They are both about 3/4 Chihuahua.
Seriously?
Yes. I kept looking at Murphy saying, those ears are not terrier. They stick straight up. He looks like a bat. He's a little black guy, and he has these big giant ears. We call them his radar dishes that stick up. And so yeah, he's Chihuahua.
I hope your poor pups didn't have any stress and worry over their new ancestry. Like, but some people find out that they're not Irish or there is no Indian princess in their ancestry. It becomes a total shock to their identity, So hopefully
Murphy's not the smartest bulb in the lamp, so I'm sure he doesn't care one iota whether he's Chihuahua or Great. He thinks he's a Great Dane half the time, but, Chihuahuas in their little warrior attitude, it's my house. But then when they get on the other side of the window or the fence, then they're little cowards. So
I've seen both of your dogs, and I think Chihuahua would be the last thing that I would have pegged them for. But
yeah, last time I checked, I think he was part Chihuahua, part Shih Tzu, which explains his weird fur, and small poodle. Now, I don't know what the difference is, a small poodle and a regular poodle. I'm not a poodle expert, but I don't know. We find these rescue mutts and we just fall in love with them and bring them home. So we're not picky.
And then we want to research their ancestry.
Exactly. So I just wanted something small because when my big dog got sick about 10 or 11 years ago, and I had to pick him up and take him to the vet, he weighed about 50 some pounds and lost use of his back legs. And I had to put a towel under him and sling him so he could go out and go potty. I threw my back out at least 3 or 4 times. So we resolved no more big dogs. So now we have little guys.
Yeah, when we went to get our last dog, we went to the pound, and I told my husband, just not a big dog and not a puppy. So we ended up with a 7-month-old Dalmatian mix that now weighs 65 pounds.
Husbands, they just don't listen.
It just didn't work out, but we love them both. And
you fall in love with what you fall in love with.
You do, both pets and people.
That is very true.
Strays wherever, so... Well, let's get talking about our topic for today's program. We're going to talk about setting goals for the new year. You know, it's always a great time to assess where you're at, what you're doing, and where you want to be in another year. After many, many years of being alive, it suddenly dawned on me that when I set goals for 6 months, that those 6 months are going to pass whether or not I work towards my goals. And 6 months from now, I will be sad that I never even started. So what types of goals might you set for your genealogy research?
Well, I'm always really interested in genealogy education type goals, like going to institutes or doing your own self-education. So maybe you want to sign up for the Salt Lake Institute of Genealogy or GRIP. What does GRIP stand for again now? Is it the same?
It's GRIP Genealogy Research Institute.
What does the P stand for?
They're people-oriented.
Okay. No more Pittsburgh. It's just all about the people.
Well, it's still up in Pennsylvania, so...
Oh, okay.
Technically, but
that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you want to learn about genetic genealogy and you want to take some classes in learning about that. Or we all know right now what's really huge is AI. So maybe you want to listen to some AI classes or take some webinars. Or maybe you're into land records. Those are really useful, especially for those who are doing Southern research and don't have access to vital records from earlier years. How about you, Tami?
Well, other types of goals that I can think of are more research specific. You could have a research specific goal like I do of finding someone or finding a certain ancestral line. You could do a one place or a one name study. Getting credentialed might be a goal. Now that's a big one. And I know you can talk a whole lot more about that. You might have a goal about wanting to start giving presentations. So wanting to apply to speak at different conferences and that sort of thing. You might want to write a book or an article on the research you've already done, or even one goal, and I have this one as well, is to just start compiling your family stories.
One thing that I want to do, especially after all these fires that are raging in Los Angeles, is take photographs of our family heirlooms. And I'd like to write a little bit about them, especially while my dad's still alive, and get his input on some of them and put them into a book, like from Shutterfly or maybe Chat Books, or I haven't really decided which company I'm going to go through. But to have that on hand for my daughter, and also maybe to have it uploaded into the cloud somewhere in case, God forbid, something did happen to our house, which is also really helpful for your insurance company. If you have photographs or even a video of inside of your house where you're showing the item and talking about the item. So getting all of your heirlooms and your photographs scanned could also be a goal for this year for you also out there.
I think it's a really great idea. My mom had done that when they were downsizing and moving. She went through, and as she was passing on different heirlooms, china and that stuff to my sister and myself, she took photographs and then printed them out and wrote up what they were, where they came from, and put them all in a notebook for us. So I'm really grateful for that because, as we all know, we have stories about our stuff that maybe nobody else knows. So that is a really important thing to do. That's a great goal, Elizabeth, especially since tomorrow isn't promised to anybody having your house tomorrow. So.
Neither is our memories. I mean, sometimes I'll look at an item and I'll think, where did I get that? Who gave this to me? I think this was from my dad's mom.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't always even remember because, those of you who are moms out there know how crazy busy things get, and you have so much going on, you can't remember those little details anymore.
Yeah.
So that's a possible goal.
That definitely is. Have you set goals for the year already? What are you thinking about planning, and what's your goal?
Well, I think my first goal is I want to apply for certification as a genealogical lecturer. So that would be the CGL, because I haven't gone through enough of that, worked on portfolio stuff. But yeah, I think I want to do that. I think I may have met the requirements, and we'll see how that goes. And I'm also working on a couple of case studies. One would be my ancestor Hiram Swanee. We think his dad, it was Miles, but there's little to no evidence, of course, to prove that from rural Tennessee in the 18th century. And I'm also looking for the parents of Samuel Marion Dunn. And I've been tracking a big DNA study for that one. And I just really need to hunker down and work through all those results and see if I can find out once and for all who his parents were. And any of you out there who have this information, please get in touch with me, because I've been working on this for about 37 years and I would really like to solve it.
No kidding.
How about you, Tami? What is your specific research goal?
Well, your last one there totally resonated with me. My main goal for this whole year is a specific research goal. I want to find the parents of my third great-grandfather, Mr. Milo Allen. I tell everybody anywhere, he appears magically in Akron, Ohio, when he gets married in 1841. And before that, he doesn't exist. But this is the year. I'm hunkering down. I'm not just going to go haphazardly through it. I have started making my plans and organizing myself and working towards success. Well, Elizabeth, if you ask me, you're the pro now, not only literally, but figuratively as well. You're the pro at setting a goal and following through, having just completed your CG here recently. So that's a huge goal and a ton of work. How did you set your goal to get through there? How did you break it up? How did you follow through becoming a certified genealogist?
Well, I'm not sure I would really be the poster child for setting a goal and achieving it, because it took me about 4 years. And, 4 years in genealogy time, I guess, isn't really that long, since, as I mentioned, it's taken me 37 years to crack those cases, even a little bit, that I talked about earlier. But it was really hard. It was like this big amorphous blob sitting in front of me, and I didn't know how to get into it. And I think a lot of it was that I was emotionally attached to it. And I know we're emotionally attached to our ancestors too, but this was like a personal thing. Can you accomplish this? I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but there was a lot of emotions that went with it. And it just really came down to the old saying of, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And I had to detach my emotions from it and just break down how I was going to eat that elephant. And you can do this for any large project, any large genealogy research project. And I joined Jill Morelli's certification discussion group because she has really made this whole process a lot more transparent than it used to be. And through that, I was assigned a CG mentor who really helped me get out of the mindset that it was a big blob that I couldn't crack. And she helped me break it down into chunks, which is not to say that I couldn't have eventually figured that out on my own, but it wasn't happening. So I needed somebody to really poke me with that.
Into bite-sized elephant bites, right?
Bite-sized, yeah. And I even had a little diagram of an elephant, and we would mark off when I ate part of it.
Really? That's awesome, though. But it's great because it helps so much when you can visualize yourself making progress as well.
It does. It does. I'm one of those people that even if I didn't have something on my to-do list, I'll write it on after I do it just so I can have the pleasure of checking it off. But the thing that really helped me was there was two things. One of them was realizing that I had times of the day when I could do certain tasks. Like I can only do creative writing. I can only write, especially in the morning, but I can only do creative type things in the morning before lunch. And I don't know why my brain is weird like this, but that's just how it is.
I totally understand, because people think I'm crazy because you know that I stay up all night.
You are a night owl.
I do my best work, especially when I'm working on Conference Keeper. I seem to be able to focus and respond to emails and do all that between like midnight and 3 a.m. So people will say, you emailed me at 3 a.m.
Yes, she did.
But like you said, when you realize where your time period lay during the day for what you can get done, I clean the best in the early parts of the day. I'm not going to say morning because I'm usually sleeping what most people call morning, but I clean the best when I'm right up and had my coffee, I'm ready to go. And then I like to settle down and do some learning, some reading, focusing on stuff, but definitely learning what your time zones are.
Yeah, so that was really helpful. So I could set up tasks based on whether they were creative or non-creative or left or right brain, whatever you want to call it. For me, it was creative and non-creative. And so if I needed to be creative and write, I would sit down and write in the morning. And if I had other tasks that were not creative, like ordering vital records or doing a little research to fill in a hole or writing source citations, then I could do those in the afternoons after lunch, or when I had small blocks of time, like I have 15 minutes before a meeting, I'm going to write a source citation, or any time really that I wanted to make some progress. And I just wasn't really feeling creative. And I started making lists. And the reason I needed to do this is because I would open a document and I would edit page 1 over and over and over. I mean, I must have edited page 1 of everything like 100 times, and I wasn't getting anywhere. So I had to make lists, and I would open up my list. I started in an app called ClickUp, and then they were having some technical issues. So I moved over to Notion, which I use a lot for a lot of things. And I would just sit down during my non-creative time, and I would think, okay, I'm going to order that birth record because I can't write right now. Or, look at my list. I need to do something. I'm not feeling creative. I got to get some work done. Or even just leaving myself a breadcrumb. Start here. I need to work on page 30, but not page 1 and not pages 1 through 29. So start on page 30. And then I would remember, oh yeah, because you don't always get to work every day consecutively. So in between, in our busy lives, I would maybe forget what I was doing. So leaving myself those trails and those lists was absolutely critical to getting anything accomplished. So that's how I did it. And I apply this process now to other big projects, like big research projects. How about you, Tami? What kind of success have you had with reaching a genealogy goal?
Well, everything you've said, ditto everything you've said. Success with goals for me also is about eating that elephant one bite at a time. Everything breaks down into one step at a time. And I realized that what almost always stops me when I'm working towards something is not knowing what to do next. And so I just would push away and not do anything. So that feels like, or can be called procrastination, when you're just don't even want to face something. But when I realized that was only because I didn't know what the next step was, that changed everything for me. So I move forward by making lists as well. I make lists of everything. I have written lists because my day-to-day tasks, the things that I need to handle next, I need to have them right visually. I keep a spiral notebook next to me all the time, and I physically write out the things that need to be done in there. And for my research goals, I keep online lists. I use Google Tasks because I'm always in my Google Calendar as well. So I'll just use Google Tasks, and you can create a whole bunch of different lists in there, and it makes it super simple and like that. But like you as well, when I accomplish something and it wasn't on the list, I go back in and add it because there's nothing like that gratification of that. But even still with the list, to something else I wanted to cover is that even when you make your list to know what the next step is, I will get that step done and realize that I have another step, but it's not easy for me. So I'll go in and break those down. Sometimes it feels like I spend a lot more time brainstorming. I'll use mind maps for brainstorming and then create my lists from that. So sometimes it feels like I'm spending a lot more time on that than I am on the actual research. But when I'm prepared and I know where I'm headed and what I'm going to do with it step by step, then I can make the most of my research time. I can sit down for 30 minutes or an hour if that's all I'm going to have, and I can check off a few boxes. I can move those steps along. And that's, to me, just knowing that I have to create steps myself, and they don't magically appear. Sometimes they do. You research one thing and something pops up, but it's got to be in your steps. You got to mark that down as a step because you got to know where you're going to go after that. So to me, it's about, again, the elephant and just creating steps.
And you could also create a formal research plan for your research project, but part of that plan is going to be going step by step. And, you've got your research plan, you've got your goal, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, but there's going to be like X1, X2, there's going to be other little steps probably that you're going to have to take in between those big steps. And having some place to keep those lists is really important. So do you still use a bullet journal?
I do. That's basically my spiral notebook next to me. It's all check boxes. And if I fill up a page and I move to the next, things that haven't been accomplished, I have to physically write on the next page, which is another motivator to check off all those boxes before I have to switch the page. You mentioned research plans. Definitely. I mean, I do have a research plan. It's more overarching, though. It's the repositories I need to visit. Where are the records that I'm looking for? What sources do I need to check? But my step-by-step lists are kind of tiny micro breakdowns, if that research log.
And a research plan can look different for everybody. Your research plan does not have to look like whatever you would give to a client if you're a professional researcher. But it is important to have a plan because if you know the old saying, those who fail to plan to fail. So don't plan to fail. I'm just full of old sayings today, aren't I?
That's exactly.
And also, it's important to know what motivates you when you are researching or when you're doing anything to accomplish a goal. Are you motivated by a reward? Are you motivated by, like some children, are you motivated by punishment or the avoidance of a punishment? Is something bad going to happen if you don't do whatever that goal is? I think as adults, we're probably not as motivated by punishment as little kids are.
Oh, I don't know. Wouldn't it be punishment to have to pass on all your genealogy to your descendants and not have discovered the people?
Well, it would be punishment to them more than it would be to you.
I suppose at that point.
Yeah. So, I like the dopamine rush of checking something off my to-do list.
Or finding an ancestor. Talk about a dopamine rush. It's like, woo!
That's the ultimate dopamine rush.
Is it not?
But, if you're researching and you find yourself wandering off to play Wordle or reading your email or whatever is the distraction, maybe you want to set up a Pomodoro timer where you work for, 50 minutes on and then 10 minutes off. And during that 10 minutes, you can get up and stretch, have a snack, pat yourself on the back, read your email, play Wordle, whatever it is. So it's important to know how you work in order to help you get things accomplished.
And see, I use my timer kind of on the opposite side of that. I'll come in and sit down at my desk and I'll set my timer to manage my email because even my email, I'm so easily distracted. It's like, oh, look, squirrel. But if I have a timer, it's like, okay, I've got to get through this. This is my task is to get through today's email. So I got to get through that and I'll put my timer for that. But when it comes to my research, I don't like to time it. In my Finding Milo, I'd been putting off planning research on this for a long time. There are so many ancestors to research. There's always low-hanging fruit that's far more fun to chase after than something that's going to require work. But a couple years ago, I received a book from my great aunt's estate called the Eaton Allen Reunion Book. And it's an awesome little handwritten book. They kept minutes from the late 1800s to the mid 1900s of every reunion for this family line. The Allen family is in there, and Milo's daughter attended many of these things. So I figured this is going to be the key to a lot of finding Milo's parents. So I finally took that book and step by step, the first thing I did now was go through the book and extract all of the names that are in there. Now, the sad thing about this book is that they'll name people but not explain who they are, or they'll say things like, Cousin Bob had a baby girl. No name, no date. And quite honestly, they spent more time at every reunion in the minutes discussing how much money was collected to buy what flavor ice cream for that year. So note to self, if you ever keep minutes for your family reunion, be sure to make it about the family and not so much about the ice cream.
Wasn't Eaton Allen, was he the furniture guy?
No, that's Ethan Allen. And though Eaton is one surname, Allen is another surname.
Yeah, what do I know? I'm a Californian. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, it's East Coast stuff, mind you. This year, as I said on and moving forward with these goals, this has been the start of my planning, was centered on that book and the family groups that are in that book, I'm putting them together and trying to make those connections and then researching those people to see who's showing up where. So far, I've had some very minor successes. I feel like I'm really on the right path. Very exciting.
And you had another goal that we've talked about for many years. What was that goal that I keep bugging you about?
That to me, that seems like such an easy goal because it's just the one I've been putting off. That would be to join the DAR. And this year we're going to do it, right? And
yes.
Yep. So, and you're the person that's going to get me there. So I can't wait. We can do that here on the podcast and hopefully helps other people get to that point, should that be their goal.
Yeah, we're not going to do that in this episode, but it will be in an upcoming one. So stay tuned. So if you need some help getting organized, organizing your upcoming goals, organizing your genealogy, whatever, there are going to be several classes taught at RootsTech that have to deal with organizing. One of them is going to be taught by me. So let's transition now into talk about some things that are happening out there. So Tami, why don't you tell us about what's new with RootsTech?
Well, just this past week, the schedule for RootsTech 2025 became available. And oh my goodness, what a huge variety of classes. There are 281 sessions. 113 of those are online. 225 of them are going to be in person. And they are on just about every kind of different topic that you can imagine. Lots of different nationalities, research in different countries, of course, artificial intelligence, AI, DNA, beginning, and a lot of the old standbys, the maps and land records and taxes and
love those.
Sorting people out with the same name. There's so many great ones. So you can go ahead and set a schedule now too, since that class list is out, and you can either do it online at rootstech.org, or they have a handy mobile app for smartphones where you can do the same thing, and they both kind of work the same. You log in and it will ask you to sign in, and there's a schedule button, and at the top of both pages, the app and the online, it says schedule on the left and my schedule on the right. So as you go through the schedule and choose the courses that you want added to your schedule, they automatically get added to your schedule, so you can go in and more easily just see, let's see, what did I have planned for today? A lot of the courses obviously 113 of them are online, so you don't have to put them on your calendar for that exact date unless you really want to be the first one to hear it. They're going to be available at least for another year. So that's what I always do, is I always make sure that I'm hitting the courses. If I'm going to go in person, I make sure I go to the classes that are maybe going to be in person only, but everything goes on my schedule. I love having that schedule. It becomes a playlist for the year. You can go back into it and click on your schedule and see what you want to listen to next. But the website's super easy to navigate to do that. The app is super easy for the same thing. Oh, one of the classes I put on my schedule that we mentioned just a bit earlier is how to join a lineage society. 6 tips for a successful application, being taught by none other than my co-host, Elizabeth Swanee O'Neill. So that class is scheduled for March 6th at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, and it will be both online and in person. And I'm looking forward to that, even though I suspect we'll be discussing that a lot more.
Okay, well, I hadn't actually looked up what time that was, so thanks for letting me know. That was on my list to figure out when these things were. And if you're going in person, it's really strongly advise you to get the app, because not only will you have your schedule at your fingertips, but they also push through various announcements. Like if one of the keynotes is going to be signing a book or posing for photos or something, they will tell you where to go for that, or God forbid, if there's an emergency and you need some sort of, emergency information. I don't think that's ever happened, but you never know these days. And you want to make sure you have the correct app. They are using the one that's pink and pinker. I guess it's kind of yellow up in the corner, and then it gets pink and even more pink, which is cool with me because I love pink. And if you have the pink one already and you open it up, it'll say 2024, but then it'll give you an option to download the content for 2025. So if you have the old blue and green app, just delete that one because it's obsolete. So you want to get the pinky one and load in the 2025 content, and then you can start making your plans. And they have the schedule. They have what I still need to this day, which is the map. I still get lost in Salt Palace. And if you find me wandering, please point me in the right direction. There's a list of speakers, exhibitors, and you can also connect with other attendees. So if you've got some Facebook friends or virtual friends or family or friends that you don't see very often, but they're all going to be there in person and you want to make plans to meet up, that's a good way to connect with people who are also attending in person. And the app is available for Android and Apple devices. So go to your appropriate store and download to your phone for free.
So also on the app, if you go up to your profile, you go up on the top right and kind of click on where it looks like your photo would go. You can see announcements, messages, connections, and surveys as well. So there's so much in the app. It says start adding connections options to expand your network and see what others are participating in at the event. I thought that might be the Relatives at RootsTech. Relatives at RootsTech is always super fun. It's another app, I think, separately.
That's the FamilySearch app.
Right, the FamilySearch. Is that okay? Well, FamilySearch runs RootsTech, so I thought maybe it might be part of it. Somehow it connects.
There might be a link to it from the RootsTech app, but I seem to remember going into the FamilySearch app, and then there was a button you could click that said Relatives at RootsTech.
Yeah.
And that's also on the website, too. You can access that.
That's always fun. Every year that I attend at RootsTech, I always end up meeting some other distant cousin in person, and it's just kind of fun. And it's also amazing to see the numbers of relatives that you have or don't have. I think we have one mutual friend who never has a single.
We do. He's like the Charlie Brown of Relatives at RootsTech. I got a rock. I got 4. I got 10,000. I got 5.
That's true. I mean, I go online on Facebook and all the genealogy friends, or I have 18,000 relatives at RootsTech. I have, and literally I got a rock.
We won't embarrass him by saying his name, but you know who you are.
This is true. So that's the good news from RootsTech this past week. There was some great news here recently from Reclaim the Records. Elizabeth, you want to talk about that?
I do, because I've been having a lot of fun with it. A big Christmas present to the genealogy community was released by Reclaim the Records. And after a multi-year Freedom of Information Act battle with the Department of Veterans Affairs, I think they said it started in 2018.
Wow.
Reclaim the Records announced, it might have been the day before Christmas, that they had not only made access to the Beneficiary Identification Records Locator Subsystem, also known as BIRLS, database, and they had made that available for free. And not only that, but they implemented a really simple system for ordering these documents right on the BIRLS website. And this database contains information about veterans who received benefits like a pension from what was called the Veterans Benefits Administration, or the VBA. And these are for conflicts after the Civil War, maybe some very, very late Civil War records, or some who re-enlisted after the Civil War might still be in that database. But think World War I going forward. And these are the claims files, or the C file, for these deceased veterans. In order to get a copy, you have to submit a FOIA request, that Freedom of Information, and you have to do it for each veteran's file. But the cool thing is this database is downloadable for free if you want to do that, but it's super easy to search right from the website at birls.org. And once you find a record that you want to order, you can place your order right through their ordering system that is integrated into the website, and that will send your FOIA request by fax machine. Yes, to the Veterans Administration. I kid you not, the VA is still responding to requests by fax, and that seems to be the only way to get their attention. I imagine they came back from Christmas break and their floor was covered in hundreds of fax requests.
I can only imagine. But that makes it super simple, though. If you find somebody in those databases, you just click those buttons and it's on its way to you. That's great.
I mean, these records can be a gold mine for researchers, and they might include records from that veteran's civilian life, like their birth, marriage, or death records, their divorce record, information about their next of kin, things that would really be very valuable to a genealogy researcher. And according to the website, many of these files are 100 to 400 pages long.
Wow.
Yeah, so even if 90% of that is boring military type stuff, the other 10% might be awesome and be a huge help to your research.
No kidding. But again, that's if you can find somebody in those databases.
They have to have applied for benefits and they have to be deceased.
Right.
And keep in mind that this is a process. Remember, we submitted a fax. So
don't hold your breath.
The 90s want their technology back here. So it may take a bit of time to get your request. Once you submit, it's supposed to take about 6 to 8 weeks to get an acknowledgement from the VA that they even received it.
Wow.
They aren't going to send you a fax. They'll probably send you a letter by regular mail. And I submitted at least 5 requests, probably Christmas Day or a couple of days after. I kept sending them in every day. I sent some new ones in. I've gotten nothing back. So I'm still waiting.
We'll have to let people know when you start receiving acknowledgments.
Yeah, I'll let you know when that happens. And if the VA locates the file and they decide that they're going to give it to you, which they can refuse, they can say, no, you're not going to have this file, and then you can appeal that, or they might take the file and redact some information out of it. So that's something that you might expect. And they will likely send you a DVD of the digitized images several weeks or months after you get your acknowledgement letter.
And this is all free though, right?
This is all free, but, computers these days no longer have those CD, DVD players built into them. So you might have to go somewhere else or call on a friend to get them to get your files off of that DVD.
Hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah, my laptop doesn't have one, so.
Yeah, no, I got that.
So, like I said, this is a long and complex process.
And the website, again, I know you keep saying BIRLS.org, but just to be clear, it's B like boy, IRLS like Sam, or more notably, the Beneficiary Identification Research Locator Subsystem, BIRLS.org.
So head over there and search for a veteran. Be thinking later. I had the best success with some like World War II type ancestors. You're not looking for your Civil War ancestor, your Revolutionary War. They are not in there, and a lot of those records are already digitized anyway. This is for those later records that we have not been able to get our hands on.
And again, they have to be deceased. My World War II ancestor is still alive.
Yeah, no living people.
For not going to trade having my dad for his military records. I'm okay with that.
And we'll also put the link in the show notes so you can grab it from there if you need to. So head over and start researching.
That sound means it's time for tea. Elizabeth, have you got any tea to spill this week?
I do. I am always the spiller of the tea, apparently. And this one is a really nasty spill, I have to say. This came across my desk, I think from Facebook is where I found it. It was a video from CBS 6 in Albany, and we thank them for bringing this news to our attention. And this involves the New York State Vital Records Department. And I'll bet there are many of you out there in listener land who have put in requests for vital records from the state of New York and are wondering, where are they?
I think that's on my to-do list for this year, so I am interested.
Put this on your to-don't list, because requests for vital records from the state of New York can take years to receive. And what's worse is the Office of Vital Records is now closed to the public, so you can't even go there or call a friend to go in and try to pull that record for you. No public allowed in there. If you send your request by mail, or if you've already sent one, you might have noticed that they cashed your check.
Of course they did.
Do. They will take your money, but don't expect to receive those records anytime soon. As of November 2024, the New York Office of Vital Records had a backlog of, get this, 10,831 genealogy vital records.
My goodness.
At $22 a pop, that's what it costs for you to submit one of these requests. That means that they have taken in $238. I can't even say the number. $238,282 of your money with no records going out.
Well, it sounds like an easy way to make some money is, you know.
It sounds like a
Hey, I got your records. Send me $20.
Yeah. I'll get some records for you. I got some swampland in Florida too.
When you go to order them, what does it tell you? Does it tell you that you may never get your records?
No, it leaves that information off. It says that it might take up to 8 months or longer, but they don't specify that by longer they mean 3 years or
No kidding. I think by that time I'd have forgotten why I wanted the record in the first place.
Absolutely. I have a client who ordered records before the pandemic started, and he still hasn't received them.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is not good.
This is not good.
And again, we want to thank CBS 6 Albany and also New York DAR member Nancy Langley for bringing this story out into the light. In the video, you'll note that Nancy has been waiting since April of 2021 for her husband's uncle's death certificate.
Wow.
And her check was cashed in 2021, and she hasn't received an acknowledgement or anything from New York Vital Records. The Department of Health there claims that they have resource deficits or a lack of manpower since COVID. And they've actually prioritized processing certified copies of vital records over these genealogy copies because they think those are more important because you need them to make claims, to have proof of death, whatever you need those certified current contemporary type records for. And they say that the genealogy copies take more time because they sometimes include a search of microfiche.
But at $22 a pop, with that $238,000, they could hire a couple people for $238,000.
I think they could get some local genealogists to come in there and do it for free, actually.
No kidding. Absolutely.
Can I have my records? I'll come and get them. Yeah. So they recommend now that if you need any genealogy copies, you should instead contact the local registrar or the town clerk of wherever you are researching instead of going to their office.
Yeah, you're probably going to, you go to the town clerk and they say, oh no, all the records are at the...
Yeah, so you might be caught in a circular loop there.
Yep.
But they did interview a local legislator there, and he said he was going to bring the topic up in the next legislative session, which is supposed to be this month, January 2025. We'll see if any progress is made, and we'd love to know from you if you've requested any of these records, how it's going for you, if you've gotten them at all. And we'll also put a link to the video in the show notes for this show. All right. So, Tami, I think you've got some slightly sweeter tea for us.
Well, I do live down in the South, so sweet tea is quite the thing down here. Having grown up on the West Coast in California, I didn't even know it existed. You just have iced tea. And down here, iced tea means it's got about 3 cups of sugar in a glass.
I've never had it.
Really? Oh my gosh. So it's sugar with some tea added to it. It's actually quite wonderful. But I do have the sweet tea for this week, and I'm going to talk about FamilySearch's goals for 2025. We're talking about goals in this episode, and FamilySearch, of course, they like to stay busy. And as if 2.4 million rolls of microfilm from over 160 countries wasn't enough to keep us busy, they're going to continue expanding records this year, and they said their areas mostly will be France, Germany, Italy, Honduras, Palau, and the Philippines. They're going to continue publishing millions of oral genealogies from in-person interviews with tribal leaders of 25 African countries. That's just an incredible project they're working on down there. And they said they're going to expand this oral genealogy program, their efforts doing that, to cultures on other continents as well. And this is so exciting. I'm just going to kind of aside on this because what they're doing is going into these places where there is a strong oral tradition and the people haven't been necessarily writing down or tracking their history that way, but it's all passed down orally. They're going in and recording these stories, recording these oral histories from these cultures. To me, it's super exciting. Anyhow, so back to their goals. They're also going to use the FamilySearch tree to build a searchable database from all these oral genealogies that they're collecting so that make it easier for people to search. And when you search, you can search by tribe, village, surname, and that'll include the recordings that they have of these things too. So
that's cool.
What a goldmine for people that are researching in Africa and from some of these areas. So continuing more goals, as if that wasn't enough, they're going to be expanding artificial intelligence to help access more unindexed handwritten records. I've been using this a lot lately. I love that it is constantly finding more and more. I run the same searches about every couple weeks because they keep adding more things to it. You can sign into your FamilySearch account. That's access the FamilySearch lab at familysearch.org/search/full-text, and you never know what you're going to find. These are things that a normal search won't pull up. You just have to go through the labs to do that. that. But another exciting thing is if you like to volunteer, and I just kind of love to volunteer, especially when it's something I can do on my phone, you can help refine these AI transcriptions for all these records using the FamilySearch Get Involved app. I was using this just yesterday. You just open up the app, it pulls up a document, and a name will be highlighted, and it just asks you, like the first name I looked at yesterday was highlighted in yellow, and the name said Frederick, and it said, "Is this say Frederick?" So I said, yes. And that was that, and moved on to the next one. And the next one was wrong. And so it let me type in what I saw, what the correct spelling looked like to me. And it's super simple. And you can do just one or two, or you can sit and do 20 or 30. This is just going to make the indexing and the searching so much better. So anyhow, that is the Get Involved app to help with the AI transcription. Now, again, if that wasn't enough, they're still going to add more to their digitized family history book collection in their digital library. They've already got 600,000 family history books in there. That'll be continuing. And they're going to make enhancements to the family tree, and including another app where family members can work together to collaborate on family stories. And the app is called Together.
Cool. Well, we thank FamilySearch for all they are doing, and just keep going. We're never satisfied as genealogists. We want more and more and more. So thank you.
And we want it free. So we love you, FamilySearch.
All right. So lastly, we wanted to mention some listener mail. And we had a listener contact us and ask about closed captioning for people who are hearing impaired. And there are some places where you can get closed captioning of our podcast. Now, unfortunately, Spotify had transcriptions available, and they rolled them back and took them away, and they are slowly rolling them out to various podcasts, but ours has not gotten on that list yet. So if you listen on Spotify, you will not be able to get a transcript. But I have found that Apple Podcasts does have a transcript available. So if you listen on Apple, you can open up your podcast app, and once you open the podcast that you're listening to, make that bigger in your phone, then you tap on the little quotes icon, and that will pull up the transcript, and it is live as we're speaking, so you can just follow along right there. And also YouTube has a transcription service too, and I was working on making it a little more accurate because it had picked up some wrong words, but that is a work in progress. And I've checked other places like iHeartRadio and Good Pods, and I could not find a way to view a transcript on either of those apps. So if you're listening on an app or somewhere and you found a transcript and we haven't mentioned it today, we would love to know where you found it.
Especially if it's a fairly accurate transcript as well.
Yes, I know.
That'd be nice to know.
It's probably hard for them to keep up with our yakking,
Understandable.
Apple did a pretty good job. You can't edit it, so I wasn't able to make any edits, but it looked pretty good so far.
So please let us hear from you. If you have questions or comments, you can email us at hello@branchingout.show.
And we're also working on getting our website up and running. I ran into some technical difficulties with it, so it's coming, but you can put it on your list at branchingout.show, and we are getting that rolling out, and it will have all the show notes and all the links to our episodes.
So I have a funny story about, well, I guess you can call it reversed closed captioning. We had at one point when my girls were small, we had a Swiss girl living with us, and she could speak English. She just couldn't write English. So she would stay home when I was at work and take phone messages. This was back before answering machines. Oh my gosh, I just dated myself horribly. But I would come home from work and she would hand me her stack of handwritten messages, and I would try to read them, and they made absolutely no sense to me until I read them out loud and I heard what I was saying. And then suddenly they made sense. So it's kind of reversed closed captioning where I had to hear what had been written in order to understand what had been said.
And that's also a really good research tip. If you're searching for a name and you can't find it by the spelling that you've been searching for, try saying it out loud and searching phonetically.
Sometimes that's counterintuitive because you automatically think, oh, but it's not spelled that way.
I try to think of every possible way that they could have said that word and spelled it. You just never know.
Good tip.
And on that note, I think we're going to wrap things up today. Thank you for tuning in to this episode, and we will see you in episode 4. And until then, happy researching.